Hello and welcome to the Tennis Menus Daily Roland Garros show. Val here with you. Another bumper edition of the program today. And look, round one is all done over 3 days. The only Grand Slam that does it, and that's one of the quirks of the French Open, but it's nice to space out the first few days just so we can get a good look at all of our favourite stars in action. Plenty to get through on the show today, but remember, head to thetennismenu.com to get an annual subscription for just $99.90 US, which includes over 600 tennis-specific drills and resources to make yourself a better tennis coach. And it's an absolutely fantastic product that Marc has put together. But the Ostapenko returning position, what the hell was going on there? She was standing halfway between the baseline and the service line last night. So we'll ask Marc about that. We'll talk about Denmark's next great hope, possibly, Clara Tauson, who defeated Jennifer Brady in 3 sets last night. That was an epic. Playing lead-up tournaments, Stefanos Tsitsipas and Andrei Rublev, the finalists from Hamburg, both pushed to the absolute brink. And also, can someone unseeded win this slam? There's a few still left in the draw. Some lucky losers possibly could go all the way. But before we do any of that, let's introduce my co-host and Marc's the fullest. Hashtag Marc for PM and hashtag Marc, best high-performance coach in the business. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks, Val. And I always like your intros. And what an extremely unbelievable first round of matches at Roland Garros. I mean, to think that a lot of the seeds, some of the seeds are out. You think that some of the upsets that have gone ahead. You think about the qualifiers that have actually gotten through a round and a lucky loser. And we're going to touch on Marc Polmans, the boy from Maribyrnong, which I'm very excited that he's through. His brother Greg was with us at Maribyrnong College for a year, and great family and super effort from Marc last night. So I want to touch on that. But you're right, the court positions and the balls are still a huge factor in this French Open, and we'll definitely touch on the Ostapenko court position and a little bit different to Dominic Thiem, but we'll go through that as the show goes on.
Well, you've also got some good stats on Nadal playing with these balls, so we want to open those up as well. But it wouldn't be the show without Joel Frucci. Joel, how are you? I should come up with a hashtag for you as well. Hashtag Joel for Premier.
Well, I've never had a hashtag made about me, so that'd be that'd be interesting. But no, good morning, Val. Good morning, Marc, and. I'm extremely pleased as well, and it's because of Marc Polmans. What a win. I love him. He's great. Infectious.
He is, and he's one of the nicest guys that we've got on tour, and it's so good. Thank God an Aussie got through to the second round, because it's happened a few times over the last decade where we haven't had one go through. I think there was once at Wimbledon, and it's happened twice at the French Open. So thank God we've got one through. But look, we'll start off with the women's draw. There are a few interesting matches there overnight, and Karolina Pliskova pushed to the absolute brink, and I thought she was in a lot of trouble against my Sheriff. We can call her the Sheriff now because that's pretty much her name. It's all in the name, isn't it? The Egyptian qualifier, the first Egyptian player ever to play in a main draw at a Grand Slam. Absolutely fantastic performance from her to push the number 2 seed all the way, but Pliskova through 6-7, 6-2, 6-4. Laura Siegmann over Kiki Mladenovic. Well, this one, Leninovich, look, I don't know what's wrong with her. I really don't, because mentally she just seems so fragile at the moment. There was another issue last night, which we will touch on, but Siegmann through 7-5, 6-3. Ludmila Samsonova pushed Sofia Kenin, the Australian Open champion, but Kenin through 6-4, 3-6, 6-3. Arina Sabalenka through no problems. Clara Tauson over Jennifer Brady, the US Open semi-finalist, 6-4, 3-6, 9-7. Served for the match at, I'm pretty sure it was 7-6. And Brady got the break back, but Tauson ended up finding another gear and going all the way. Sloane Stephens also through over Vitalia Diachenko pretty comfortably in straight sets. Elena Rybakina also through with a big win over Sorana Cirstea, 6-love, 6-3. That's not one I was expecting. Danielle Collins through sort of on her comeback from injury. There was a lot of verbal noise coming out of her mouth last night. We saw Nicolescu through in an underarm serve, and Collins put it away, and there was a huge coming out of that. Irina Bara, the young Romanian qualifier, has dispatched on a Vekic 6-3, 6-4. So Vekic still not enjoying an inconsistent year. On Jabeur through over Zarina Diaz 4-6, 6-3, 6-1. Alison Risk gone over Julia Georges 6-3, 6-7, 6-1. Yelena Ostapenko hitting winner after winner after winner against Madison, Bringle, and Alison Van Wiebank, Nao Habino, and Petra Martic also through Nao Habino defeating Marta Kostyukume the third round of the US Open. But guys, we'll start with what happened on Court Simon Mathieu. Jennifer Brady, we thought that after what happened at the US Open, she'd play so well and really and storm through this French Open. But with the way she hits the ball, you think the conditions would suit her. But Clara Tauson, in the year Caroline Wozniacki retired, has emerged as Denmark's next great hope. Marc, we'll start with you. What did you make of the result?
Yeah, very interesting. I was a friend of our show and obviously part of the tennis menu, Shane Leninovich from Data Driven Sports Analytics, was doing some analysis on the match of the forehands, he called it. And, Tauson was obviously won it in the first set, and then Jennifer Brady bounced back. But, obviously a great match. And, I did think Brady probably would have suited these conditions with a bit more time on the ball, with a bit more space to be able to really load up on her forehand, which is an absolute weapon of the game. But obviously it wasn't to be. And, a nice long match, which, I wasn't sure which way it was going to go at one stage. But, Tauson's come through on it with a great result for her. And
Joel, you watched this match closely. And you sent me a text during it saying neither player wanted to win it. What was happening at 7-6 in the fifth?
Yeah, well, both players had match points. I think Jennifer Brady had 2 or 3. And then Clara Tauson had, I think, a similar amount. And she actually missed a really easy approach shot to put the match away. At that point, unfortunately, just couldn't get it done. And I think at that point, you're thinking, geez, can she get it done? Because she's missed this great opportunity. And, with a player so young, of course, she is 17 years old, just graduated really from the girls' tour, essentially. At that point, you're thinking, can she put it away? But in the end, she did go on with it. And I guess that's a pointer, I suppose, to a resilient young player, which I really like. And she's up to a career high of at least 155, Clara Tauson, which is great. And we don't want to compare her too much to Caroline Wozniacki, but there were sort of some shades or some elements of Caroline's forehand in Clara Tauson's game. So really exciting. And she's up against Danielle Collins in the second round. So that'll be a really interesting game. Certainly some seniority versus some youth.
Yeah, well, hopefully Tauson doesn't take as long to win a slam as what Caroline Wozniacki did. That was a long wait, and it was amazing when she actually did it. But hopefully it doesn't go that long anyway. But Maya Sharif over against Karolina Pliskova, that was a really interesting matchup. And looking at Pliskova, are these conditions, Marc, that would suit her more than what a lot of other players, or more than they would a lot of other players, because of just the way she hits the ball, her stature, her height, and she does have a lot of weight on her shots.
Yeah, I think it does. I think she has a lot more time on the ball to be able to load up, and that's what she showed last night, just cracking, I think it was 40-odd winners in the match, which is absolutely incredible. She was just loading up. So playing Ostapenko in the next round, if the ball stays in more than 3 shots, I'll be quite surprised. So, just the absolute aggression that she plays with. And obviously she definitely shot the sheriff last night and got through with the win. But it was actually good to see an Egyptian player get through. I got a little bit of history with the old Egyptians. My dad was born there, and a little bit of history with that, but great to see a player from Egypt get through. It's very unknown. Obviously does her training on the pyramids and does a few hills up there. So she's probably quite fit and strong, but just couldn't get the chocolates in that match against Pliskova, who was just too strong.
Well, there's the hashtag, Marc for Pharaoh.
Pharaoh.
Right there we go. All right, I think we've got it down pat now. But no, it was a great win for Pliskova, and great story for Maya Sharif. We've obviously got on the men's side Mohamed Safwat, who's played a few Grand Slam main draws, and he's getting on a little bit now. I think he's 30. So but look, Egyptian tennis. Hopefully, we can see a few good performances from them over the next few years. We do love when a kind of non-tennis country comes through and takes the world by storm, and that's definitely what what you'd call Egypt, the non-tennis country. They're more famous for their soccer and other sports. But Christina Leninovich against Laura Siegmann. So we saw what happened at the US Open, blowing a big lead and losing there and blaming the US Open lockdown. Well, she's blaming US Open lockdown again for this loss against Laura Siegmann. She was up 5-1 in the first set, had a set point, thought she converted a drop shot, but Eva Azdaraki, I've just been reading up a little bit of what it actually says, and Eva Azdaraki, the umpire, apparently didn't spot the extra bounce that came during a 10-stroke exchange. Siegmann ran from Leninovich's short ball and got it back over the net, although a TV replay showed the ball had bounced twice. So, look, I don't blame her for being angry, but there's no real excuse for dropping a 5-1 lead, is there? Like, if you got a 5-1 lead, you should be able to close that out, shouldn't you?
Oh, absolutely, 100%. And 1 point doesn't finish a match. You know, I mean, it's 1 point out of 100 odd points that might have been played in the entire match. So, you know, for her to blame that, I think, you know, it's a very easy outlet, and players do like to have outlets. Absolutely. You know, you see them wearing a bandage on court before they even walk out there, just to make sure, just in case. It's the old protection tape, as I call it. But, you know, there's no way 1 point changes a match. It changes your mindset. It doesn't change the match. So, you know, you've got to be able to be strong enough to handle that. And obviously she wasn't. And, you know, well done to Siegmann for getting through and taking the opportunity and capitalizing on, you know, a poor mental execution from Leninovich.
Yeah, agree. And, fantastic from Siegmann. Leninovich is one of the most temperamental players that you'll see on the WTA, and can be really, she's a former top 10 player. We know that. And remember, her form in the back end of 2017 and the start of 2018, she played some unbelievable tennis, and then all of a sudden it just completely dropped off. And she's still France's number one, but when you've got your number one acting like that, definitely does not help. Another one I want to ask you guys about is Yelena Ostapenko against Madison Bringle. Now, Ostapenko hit 41 winners in this 6-2, 6-1 demolition of the American, the 2017 champion. Now, I'll ask you about the winners in a sec, Marc, but Joel, can an unseeded player win this slam? Ostapenko, the last person to do it in 2017. But even on the men's, can an unseeded player go through and win this slam? There's still a lot left and a lot of upsets.
I think because it's more obvious, I think, on the men's side, no, flat no.
Yeah.
On the women's side, possibly. And the reason I say that, I think we've already seen about a dozen seeds fall by the wayside at this Roland Garros. So quite possibly. And when you've got players like Yelena Ostapenko, who has finally broken that hoodoo of getting past the first round at the French Open, other than the year that she won it, she hasn't been past the first round. Incredible for quite a while.
Yeah.
She's into the second round, and as we've seen, hitting the ball quite hard. You mentioned, Val, 41 winners, but also I've got the stat in front of me, 37 unforced errors as well. And that's not to mention her starting position that we saw at times on the court. She clearly was not mucking around. Obviously, we're going to see her up against Karolina Pliskova in round two. That's going to be a very heavy hitting match, and
wonderful shot rallies.
Yeah, exactly. There could be some short rallies in that one, but look, I don't see any reason why an unseeded player can't win the women's draw, but certainly not on the men's.
Yeah, fair enough. I think I agree with those sentiments there as well. But Marc, the 41 winners, this is what Ostapenko can do. And how, as a coach, do you, and we talked yesterday about the difference between, and during the US Open show as well, about the difference between your best tennis and your worst tennis. And Ostapenko's difference is the Nile River long, if we're going to use Egypt again as an example. But it is quite a vast difference between her best and her worst. How, as a coach, do you try and improve that consistency? Because we obviously know what she can do, but we know what she can do in a negative sense as well.
It's interesting you bring this point up, because I think the conditions will suit her, because she just hits the cover off the ball. So the ball's slowing down a little bit. So it's actually going to bring her ball back into the court. So I think the conditions are going to help her erratic behavior and her erratic tennis. And I was actually having a conversation last night while the matches were going on with Shane Leninovich, and Shane and I were discussing about things. And I've got a theory on my coaching philosophy is defense wins tournaments, offense wins matches. And I'm a big believer that the best defensive players generally win the tournaments, because they attack off the back of good defense. Whereas Ostapenko plays extremely high risk tennis, and yes, it can work multiple times, but it's hard to sequence that for an entire tournament. And it's really important to understand, like you look at Djokovic and Nadal, Federer, take away who they are and what they've achieved in tennis. Why have they won matches? Because they defensively don't miss balls, because they don't give you the opportunity to get into a match, because they keep the ball in longer than their opponent, because the difference between their winners and unforced errors isn't this huge amount of unforced errors and huge amount of winners. It's actually very, very steady and very, very close together. And to be able to play your best tennis and play it consistently well, you've got to keep the ball in the court. At the end of the day, you've got to beat the court itself, not the opponent. So if you can't keep the ball in long enough, you don't have a chance to play offensive tennis. And to me, that's a really big statement, but also a philosophy I've gone by, because I feel as though in team sports, it's the same concept. You've got to defend first and attack off the back of good defense. I know liken it to AFL is where Richmond Football Club has done that for 3 or 4 years now, where we've dominated the game. Why? Because our defensive structures outweigh our offense, and we score on the back of good defense. And then you look at all these players that come in, and you look at the Gael Monfils, as we discussed at the start of the tournament, great offensive skills, but defensively doesn't stay in the points long enough, isn't consistent enough, his strategy is to beat the guy with multiple winners and flashy tennis. And that can only last so long. And, yes, players do win with great offense, absolutely. But the consistent level of the game isn't the Yelena Ostapenkos. And that's where I feel as though this tournament, I feel as though she will be able to be a better player in this tournament because the conditions are slower and will control her ball more often. So it won't be as erratic as probably normal. Now, remains to be seen playing against Pliskova what will happen. It'll be a bash fest, no doubt. And who can keep the ball in longer is going to win the match. And that's basically plain and simple of the game. So hope that answers your question, but I'm really, really passionate about the ability to keep the ball in longer wins matches. And, yes, you've got to have offense, but you've got to keep the ball in and keep your errors to a minimum.
Yeah, and I guess that's why a guy like Gael Monfils has never beaten Novak Djokovic, because he tries to play that sort of impatient style tennis, and Djokovic will play out there all day if he has to try and win a match. And I love the example of bringing the Tigers into the fold here, because 2017 and 19, hopefully 2020 as well. But no, we'll move into the men's side of things as well now. And look, Novak Djokovic against Mikael Ymer last night was unbelievable. Did anybody see Ymer's tweener?
Unbelievable! What a shot!
Djokovic in the second set. That was one of the best shots I think I've ever seen ever. Like, he hit that from so far out of the court, off balance, and straight past Novak, which is hard to do anyway when you're not hitting it through your legs. But to do it like that, I think only I've seen Federer do that before. So unbelievable from the young Swede. But Djokovic looked in ominous form, 6-love, 6-2, 6-3. Did anybody see the Federer heckler that came to the match last night?
Yeah.
I haven't seen this.
Yeah, so a Federer heckler, he was wearing a Federer hat and was heckling Djokovic throughout the match, and Djokovic has given him probably a 20-second stare while he's kicking the clay off his shoes, and then blew him a kiss. So I'm not sure. Look, if that Federer fan is listening, don't anger him. Just let him just peter. Just don't give him any more motivation to try and get Roger's records. We've got to try and keep him. Mate, the concentration's there anyway, but just any less motivation you can give him, good stuff.
Or do it wearing a helmet and a neck brace.
Yes. Love it.
Val?
Yeah.
Val, I've got a question for you.
Yes.
How did you manage to go from Taylor's Lakes to Paris and back to Taylor's Lakes all in the space of 8 hours?
Teleportation. I've conjured it. I've done it. That's how I get around. That's how, I do love Roger Federer. Some would call me a nuffy, and I am wearing his clothes now. So, look, I found it quite funny. The fact that Djokovic blew him a kiss as well. That's, that was really interesting. But obviously shows that even with the lack of crowds there, something will still irritate him with them. So it's it's pretty unbelievable. But yeah, we'll move on. He was so good last night. So we'll see what happens later on in the tournament if someone can challenge Djokovic, because it doesn't look like he's going out early. Denis Shapovalov winning a 4-setter over Gilles Simon, 6-2, 7-5, 5-7, 6-3. Matteo Berrettini could be that man to challenge Djokovic. He hits the ball cleanly, and he clubbed Vasek Pospisil off the court last night, 6-3, 6-1, 6-3. He looked supreme. Stefanos Tsitsipas, 2-love down against Jaume Muna, 4-6, 2-6, 6-1, 6-4, 6-4. He gets over the line. And the guy that beat him in the Hamburg final on Sunday night was down 2-love on Sam Querrey. And Querrey actually served the second set at 5-4. Rublev broke back and then ended up losing it in a tiebreaker. But 6-7, 6-7, 7-5, 6-4, 6-3 in 3 hours and 17 minutes. That's a long match for Rublev, but will he be better for the hit out? Who knows? And same with Stefano Tsitsipas. Roberto Bautista Agut, big win over Richard Gasquet, 7-6, 6-2, 6-1. Marc Polmans over Ugo Humbert in great form, 6-2, 6-2, 3-6, 6-3. Amazing win from the young Australian. Brilliant stuff. So good to see him into the second round. Deserves it thoroughly. Grigor Dimitrov over Gregor Barrère, 6-3, 6-2, 6-2. Marcos Giron over Quinton Alice. Christian Garin over Philip Kohlschreiber in 4 sets. That's a solid win. Kohlschreiber is a very, very tough customer, still at the age of 35. Alexei Popyrin out, losing to Lloyd Harris, 6-4, 6-4, 7-6. It's a bit of a disappointing result there from Popyrin, who's not bad on the clay. Kevin Anderson through over Laszlo Djere in straight sets. Alejandro Davidovich Fokina is through. He defeated Harold Mayo, 7-6, 6-3, 7-5. Attila Balaz, the Hungarian, I think he's about 30, so a bit of a late bloomer. Attila Balaz over Yuki Uchiyama of Japan, and Thiago Monteiro over Nicolas Basilashvili as well, the 31st seed gone. But Hugo Dellien, I thought he'd be good enough to beat Ricardus Berankis on the clay, the Bolivian. He can hit the cover off the ball, but Berankis, the heart monitor, the fluctuator, defeated him 6-1, 6-4, 6-4. Dusan Lajovic also through as well. So I'm going to take a breath now, and we're going to talk about the matches between Tsitsipas and Muna, and then Rublev and Querrey. And Marc, when you play in a lead-up tournament before the event, you'd think, okay, like a lot of players don't often like to win those tournaments. They like to just get the hit out and then go to the Grand Slam and play that consistent tennis that they want. Tsitsipas and Rublev played the final on Sunday. The French Open had started while they were playing that match. Does that hold them in better stead or worse now that they've come to Paris?
Generally, you'd probably say it hold them in pretty good stead because the form, the confidence, the belief going into the next tournament. The one hard thing was, the tournament started pretty much at the same time that the French Open was starting and Hamburg was finishing at the same time. So it is a challenge because, you look at the conditions now. I don't know if people would have expected this to be the way it is in terms of the courts and the way they're playing. And I think, the conditions might have been slightly different, and that's where they've struggled a little bit to adapt, getting in and playing. Who knows? It's probably not ideal preparation, I would say. But when you're looking at haven't played tennis for 6 months, haven't had an income, haven't been able to do anything, and all of a sudden you're in the final, or you're doing really well at a tournament at a 500, and you can get some pretty decent pocket money out of it. It's a bit of a catch-22, isn't it? Whether or not you continue and go, I want to give this a real crack and win it, or no, you know what? I need to get out of this tournament and get ready for the Grand Slam. So I think they found their feet obviously a little bit later than they would have liked, both players in the matches, obviously being 2 sets to love down. But, they have played a lot of tennis now. Is this gonna hurt them moving forward? Quite possibly. They could be quite exhausted getting into the second week of this tournament if they do happen to get to that point. So there's a lot of pros and a lot of cons in terms of, whether or not you want to play right up to that tournament. But I think this might have hurt them just a little bit going into this event. And I think there's a bit of fatigue. Also, the lack of conditioning from, obviously the conditions that they're playing in compared to Hamburg. So it'll be very interesting to see how they go over the next few rounds.
Yeah, I do agree. And Rublev is one that, Querrey's never the first round opponent you want to get, especially like if it's on grass, you really don't want to get him in the first round. But even on the clay, he has won titles on the surface before and in Europe as well. I think it was Belgrade back about 10 years ago that he won a title there. So tough win for Rublev, but the draw did open up for him with the loss of Daniil Medvedev. So Martin Fucsovics there, and then the other seed, Thiago Monteiro, took care of him. So Nicolas Basilashvili out. Dusan Lajovic and Kevin Anderson in the second round. That's an interesting one. So the winner of that will most likely meet Rublev, who plays Alejandro Davidovich Fokina. But then if you've got the other, some Marc's Bryce smile there, in the other side of the draw in that quarter, you've got Shapovalov, Dimitrov, and Tsitsipas. So Tsitsipas won't get a seed up until the 4th round if he gets there, but that seed will be Dimitrov or Shapovalov. That's not going to be easy at all. So, yeah, I'm not sure if fatigue will. I think it's going to be difficult for both to actually get through. But Rublev's draw has opened up a lot more than what Tsitsipas has. So, yeah, it's very peculiar to see what's going to happen here. But we've got to get to this one. Marc Polmans, what a win over Ugo Humbert last night. And Joel, we had him on our podcast Breakpoint earlier on in the year. How good is it to see him getting through to a second round at a major that's not in Australia? I think it's his first non-Australian Open main draw win at a slam. So amazing story. And to beat a Frenchman as well, who's in great form.
Yeah, exactly. There was a lot to gain for Marc Polmans. I think he's pocketed nearly €85,000 in prize money just by reaching the second round of Roland Garros. So that's a very big ticket for him. But also he's picked up a career high of 112 at least. So nice little rise for him there. But to think that him as a lucky loser, having lost to, I think it was Liam Broady, wasn't it, that he lost to
Broady's
in qualifying. Now. Yeah, and Broady's out now, who, well, at the time was actually in quite solid form himself. But to think that a lucky loser has gone from being knocked out of qualifying to then knocking off 41 in the world, Ugo Humbert, in round one of Roland Garros is brilliant in 4 as well. Obviously, Ugo Humbert was in really, really good form. Beat Daniil Medvedev in Hamburg. He had that nice little moment with his mum as well. If you guys saw that was quite nice. But clearly, Marc was able to take advantage of what was a stuttering second serve from Ugo Humbert. I think it was at the end of the second set. Ugo was serving on his second serve at 15%. I think on the second serve points, he'd won something like 3 out of 20. So that is just, you're never going to win anything really at that level when your second serve percentage is that low. So look, great win by Marc. Obviously, we love the Legionnaires cap, and when that guy is smiling, it's just really infectious as well. He's got a lot of energy on court, and just really, really good to see, especially when, we think about all the other Aussie men that have lost on the clay so far this tournament.
Yeah, it's a great point. And, Marc's obviously one of those kids who I've known for a long time, and he's done a lot of training with us when I was coaching Dane Propoggia. And he actually is one of those kids that works that hard. And I'm so proud and so glad to see it occur that he gets a result like this and gets an opportunity. He's done it his own way. He's funded himself. The parents have put so much time and effort in, and it's a real credit to the family that have stuck together and that have known the process and that have really worked hard with Marc, obviously, to achieve his dreams. And, I think he's not far away from breaking that top 100 now, which is really cool for him. And it's someone who deserves it. And if there's ever anyone who deserves it, it's Marc Polmans. So, just because he's an Aussie, it's not that. It's just he's worked so hard for it and had to do it a really hard way and gone the long way around. And, congratulations to him and his family for everything they've done. And, hopefully this continues. And I'd sent him a text message after his match, and he replied straight away. And just such a grateful young man and such a proud young boy. So congratulations to him. And, hopefully he goes on with it from here and can actually get another result in the next round. It would be really good to see him back it up and get that win, which would be great for him and Australian tennis.
No, here I couldn't agree more. And yeah, he's one of the humble guys as well. He hasn't lost that at all in his journey. So fantastic to see. But just quickly, before we get to returning positions, before we do go, Novak Djokovic in set 2 last night, Ime hit 75% of his first serves in. Not a bad server, has some pace on it. He only won 27% of first serve points. That is ridiculous returning from Novak Djokovic. And if that's any sign of what's to come, he's in for a very, very good tournament. But returning positions, Dominic Thiem, we saw him returning from the back of the court as usual. Rafa was in a little bit. Yelena Ostapenko was halfway between the service line and the baseline. Not sure what was going on there, but must have helped the ability to hit winners, Marc. I'm not sure, but you've got some stats on the balls as well, and what's and what they're doing, and just how they're sort of acting, especially for Rafael Nadal as well.
Yeah, it's interesting with her court position because seeing Ostapenko stand there, obviously she's done the Roger Federer saber. She's taken it to a new level and she's standing right up on the service line. It's really good to see someone change it. I mean, the conditions need us to play up the court, and there's no doubt she's taken that to a new level. But in Dominic Thiem, it's interesting because he's still starting back, but as he plays his first ball, he's actually returning back to that baseline a little quicker than probably what he would normally on a clay court. So, obviously everyone's trying to push up the game a little bit closer to the baseline, which is just adapting to the slowness of the court and the heaviness of the balls. But, when you talk about the tennis balls, and there's a lot of controversy around the tennis balls, Shane Leninovich, again, and great data that he's bringing up on his Tennis Nerds blog. So if you check that out, it's pretty cool on LinkedIn. He's got a 98, Rafael Nadal's got a 98.2% winning record on clay with Babolat balls. 98.2% winning record with Babolat balls. With the Wilson balls on clay, he's got a 92%. So he dropped 6% with the difference of balls.
That's really poor. That's so poor.
It's crap. I mean, he's got to lift his game.
Like,
got to lift his game. But it's interesting because you drop down to the head balls on clay and he drops down to 86%. So there's a 12% difference between a ball on the same surface. Now, how that plays into effect here at Roland Garros, it's going to be very interesting because it's been a massive talking point. It's been a huge talking point over the course of the French Open. And whether or not, the 1 or 2 or 3% difference that it does produce in his winning record will play a massive part when you're playing against a player maybe like Novak Djokovic or a Dominic Thiem come semi-final or final. And that is what the best of the game is. It's the 1%ers. It's not going to be a matter of 5 or 10%. It's going to be the 1% little things that make a difference. And will the balls make a difference? Time remains to tell on that situation. But, it will be very interesting come semi-final, final time if he is playing Djokovic or Dominic Thiem.
100%. So it's going to be, I'm so excited. I wish we could just fast forward to the back end of the tournament right now because I would love to see that Rafa Thiem semi-final if we do get it. But tomorrow or tonight, I should say, the matches coming up, Elena Svitolina against Renata Zarazua, the first Mexican woman in 20 years to play in a main draw Grand Slam, or first one in 20 years to win a main draw Grand Slam match. Svetlana Peronkova against Serena Williams, round 2. So they get quarterfinal at the US Open and now a second round here. And look, whether Peronkova has learned something from that and can use the conditions to her advantage, if she can get Serena moving, I think this is the time that she's going to beat her. Mackenzie McDonald against Rafa Nadal, Alex Zverev against Pierre-Hugues Herbert, Stan Wawrinka in action against Dominic Keffer is in great form. Jack Sock and Dominic Thiem. Sock, obviously, former top 10 player, and Dominic Thiem, the US Open champion. That should be a cracking matchup. Simona Halep against her compatriot, Irina Camelia Begu. Caroline Garcia against Alexandra Sasnovich. Azarenka, Schwartzman, Benoit, of course, one of our favourites. Coco Gauff, Kiki Bertens, Coco and Kiki. I want to see those two play each other because that just rolls right off the tongue. Amanda Anisimova and Bernarda Pera taking on each other. John Isner against Sebastian Korda. We've got some really good matches to look forward to tonight, and also Taylor Fritz in action as well. Astra Sharma, the young Australian, or I think, is she young anymore or is she our age, Joel? I think she's our age, so you can kind of call her young, but she's not as young
in a tennis sense.
I always get really confused saying young Australian because it's like, hang on, I'm that age. So let's just keep going. She'll take on Karina Alexandrova. Daria Gavrilova against Eugenie Bouchard. That'll be exciting. Casper Ruud, Joel's unfriendly ghost friend, against Tommy Paul. So we've got some really, really exciting matchups to come our way tonight. But it's been very exciting. Remember, you can head to thetennismenu.com and get an annual subscription for just $99.90 US, which includes over 600 tennis-specific drills and resources to make you a better tennis coach. And, well, this man can make anybody a better tennis coach. His name is Marc Safoulis. And Marc, hashtag Marc for Pharaoh, Marc for PM, whatever we want. We're going to instill you into those positions. Thank you very much for your time and effort today, mate.
Thank you very much, guys. Looking forward to tonight's matches and getting back into it tomorrow.
Sounds very good. And Joel Frucci, as always, thank you very much. Hashtag Joel for Premier.
Oh, thanks, mate. See you tomorrow.
See you then. It's been a really good first round of Roland Garros. Hopefully that can continue without any COVID controversy. There hasn't been any so far this tournament, so fingers crossed that continues. Val Verbo, Marc Safoulis and Joel Frucci joining you on the Tennis Menu's daily French Open show. We'll see you tomorrow.